Hello, good evening, and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the season finale of Season 3 of the Sim Racing Collective GT4 series, available only on the premier sim racing platform available on PC, known as iRacing. That's right, folks. After 5 weeks of absolutely nail-biting racing action that's kept us guessing each and every step of the way, we have made our way to our season finale, and what a venue to see our drivers do battle to conclude the championship campaigns in both the Pro and the Am driver classes. We are here in Australia for the recently refurbished Mount Panorama Raceway Circuit, but you will know and love it and normally refer to it as Bathurst in reference to the local city. 3.86 miles in length and 23 corners at its core, it is a circuit that is one of the most old school circuits in the world, or at least in the Oceania region, with its road surface consisting of roads that are normally used by day by commuters to travel from home to work and vice versa. But when it comes to race day, we seal the circuit up and make sure it is very tough to conquer. It is one of those circuits which really does have that vibe of a lost generation, with very little road width by default, only enough to go too wide on the straights that take our drives to and from the mountain from which it takes its name, and the majority of its 23 corners located over the mountain. This is one of those circuits where track position and being brave under braking go in equal measure if you want to come away victorious. But where are my manners? Allow me to welcome you all to this live broadcast from Circuit Side as you tune in tonight on the one and only source for this broadcast, and that is of course on YouTube at the Sim Racing Collective. Just search for TSRC or the Sim Racing Collective on YouTube and you can be tuning in there and joining many a spectator week in, week out as we bring you plenty of racing action here from the community. In the Chrome TV, if you have myself, my name is Paul Walsh, also known as TX121, or Britain as bit, depending on what media you follow me on. And I shall be covering all your racing action tonight as we bring the curtain down on what has been an absolutely incredible season. And keep in mind, it is all still to play for. We have no champion elects, we definitely have a couple of favourites, but nobody has wrapped things up with this final round to go. And as far as schedule for tonight, timed in UK time, that's Greenwich Mean Time or Universal Coordinate Time, +0, well, we are in a feature race round, which means there's only one race on the schedule, and the qualifying for it is due to get underway in approximately 2.5 minutes time at 8:05 this evening. After which we'll make our way immediately to the grid, and at 8:15 it is going to be a 40-minute race to bring everything to a close. And who will be our final victors? Well, it's time for us to find out. But of course, as we head into this round, we need to set the scene and remind you of where we are. So let's recap how we got to this point and what is lying in wait. Because as we can see, we look back to our calendar and we have made our way around the globe, having opened up all the way back at the start of November, on November the 10th at the Alton Park International Circuit. There, it was all about the battles at the very front of the field in both of the classes, with Valerio Petretti absolutely delivering in the Am class, and meanwhile in the Pro class, it was Tom Davidson and Kieran Sharp who surprised everybody with some absolutely brilliant performances. Then we made our way to the Mugello Grand Prix Circuit, and we were plagued by safety cars there. Multiple safety cars really broke up the racing, but it didn't stop for our drivers impressing and did plenty of battles as we turned the race into what was effectively a 15-minute sprint. Then in round number 3, we made our way to the United States of America for the first time this season to the Virginia International Raceway, and with it, it was 2 sprint races, the first time we've ever seen the sprint race format used as part of the GT4 series, and what a format it was, with the 15-minute race being led by Francesco Pettelin, albeit he had the pressure behind him every step of the way of Tom Davidson in the Pro class, and the 2 swapped places in the 25-minute follow-up sprint, and that's how they share the spoils. Meanwhile, in the Am class, where it was Mark Davenport who absolutely surprised everybody with an absolutely monstrous set of results, and he'll be looking to do even more today. However, that was the first half of the season, and then in the second half of the season we kicked off in Belgium at the Circuit Zolder Grand Prix Circuit, and then absolutely atrocious conditions where it rained before practice and the circuit gradually dried, and we saw the circuit cross over from wet to dry at the midpoint of the race. It was all about picking the right times for the job, and in the Pro class, well, it was the regular favourites who managed to put themselves right at the front, but Craig Twardock surprised everybody with perhaps the most consistent drive of the season from any driver, and from the Pro class to the Am class, it was Davenport versus Bart Raven, I should say, and the two of them in the end were literally separated by 6 thousandths at the line, with going in the favour of Davenport. And last time out, of course, we had our second sprint race round. We made our way back to the US of A, and it was in the US state of California. We hit the Sonoma Raceway, and there in the mountains of Summit Point, In fact, Sears Point, I should say, getting my mountain regions mixed up, we got to see some absolutely superb battling, and Tom Davidson has extended his lead coming into this round in the Pro class. And as for the Am class, everything has been blown wide open, with multiple incidents in both races really shaking up the field. So it's a Bathurst it is, and you're joining us today on the 15th of December 2025. And as for our host circuit then, as we can see, located near the city of Bathurst in the Australian state of New South Wales, there's only one layout to this circuit, and a huge thank you to iRacing.com for their brilliant simulator and the track mats that come with it. 23 corners, and many of these household names, whether it be Hell Corner at turn number 1, all the way through to the Dipper and Forest Elbow at turns 14 and 18. Indeed, the circuit is absolutely iconic year in, year out. It brings many a spectator, both on the domestic and international stage, to its wonderful tarmac, and at the core here is an absolutely huge elevation change of the best part of 81 metres. Our drivers make the way all the way from the lowest point of the circuit at Murray's Corner at turn number 23, all the way to the highest point at Skyline at turn number 11. But as they make the way around here, they'll be relegated to overtaking only at certain points, into turns 1 and 23 of course, but also in the run to the mountain, up what is the mountain straight of turns 1 through to 2, at Griffiths Bend is where it ends, and of course the run all the way out of Forest Elbow at turn number 18, down the Conrod Straight and in towards the Chase Chicane at turns 21 and 22. Otherwise it's going to be one wide over the mountain unless anybody dares to make an overtake, but that is going to prove incredibly risky. As for our rules then, because this is a feature race round, a quick reminder of the rule set. And this is a fixed setup series where drivers provided with setups ahead of each and every race by the Sim Racing Collective Administration. Qualifying wise, a closed qualifying format is being used, and drivers have 3 flying laps available plus their out lap. And they've only got 10 minutes to get those laps together, so they've got to be quick here today, with the average lap time being in excess of 2 minutes. Because it is a feature race round, we'll see that our drivers have 1 fast pair available in each race, and the driver shall receive a drive-through penalty if they accumulate 17 or more instant points. Meanwhile, all race stewarding shall be conducted post-round. So that's enough rules, regulation, everything in between. We're all here for the racing, as we do ride on board there Valerio Petretti, who is one of our very first drivers to make his way out onto circuit, and well, we're going to be getting plenty of on-board footage of our drivers as they make the way around. But let's take another look to the scenic view for a brief moment, and the reason we want to do that is because we want to show you the championship standings coming into this round, and we begin with the Pro class then. And as we can see, Tom Davidson leads. However, in a twist of fate, he's not been able to make this round, so therefore this round will become his drop score for the season, and the Sim Racing Collective Esports driver has not done enough to finish things off. He is 20 points ahead of Francesco Pettelin, with the absolute merciful ace of this driver knowing that he needs perfection tonight if he wants to guarantee that he will be your pro champion. He's got a lot of points to overhaul versus Davidson, so Pettelin right now cannot take his foot off the gas. If anything, the Italian driver's got to absolutely push hard if he wants to take this championship crown. Kieran Sharp, meanwhile, it's mathematically impossible for him to be able to take the championship crown, but he'll be hunting after Pettelin, but he's also got to be wary of the fact that Alessandro Dalladone is only 5 points behind, with the Italian job driver having a rather misfortunate last couple of rounds, and therefore the 61 driver really wants to bounce back today. Matt Sheraton looks to hold on to 5th then for Aztec Racing, only 3 points ahead of MSA Racing's Craig Twardock, with both drivers gradually improving as the season has gone on, and of course Twardock holding 1 win to Sheraton's non-wins so far this season. Jack Salford sits in 7th for the Sim Racing Collective Esports, ahead of his teammate pair of Andrew Pike and Mav Gardner, and then we do have Felix Smoggy completing your top 10 for Cracked Racing. In 11th, best of the rest is Alan McCain for iRacing Esports, 2 points ahead of Ivan Falcone, and then we do see Dilar FP1's at Marlin Schwab in 13th place, 6 points ahead of Martin Blankensteiner, and Nick Clemens completes the top 15. In 16th, it's Miles Owens, the last with points to his name, and then yet score any points this season, we have Bobby Moss, Lucas Sauer, and also a bit further down there, we also have Louis Hesketh. Meanwhile, in the AM class, well, the story is just that little bit different, because we have 4 eligible candidates here for the title, and they are all here today, I do believe. Mark Davenport is the man who leads by 10 points for Manx Racing over Cracked Racing's Bart Raven. Raven has been pushing hard all season, so has Davenport. So both of these drivers right now are giving it everything they can in order to be able to be crowned champion. It sounds obvious, but they really have come alive since the midway point of the season. Valerio Petretti sits in 3rd for the Italian job team. He was your championship leader earlier on in the season, but things have fallen gradually backwards, and he struggled massively at Sonoma in order to be able to achieve some points, and therefore it does seem as though Petretti right now is on the back foot. And if he is, well, Craig Murphy, the Manx Racing driver there in 4th on the 49 car, he might be able to close the distance, moving to 3rd. He could even theoretically steal the title away from everybody if everybody else struggles today. Although Manx Racing wants to make it a 1-2, that's the certainty. Clive Bourne in 5th place for Big Pig Racing by VRS. He cannot take the crown due to the mathematics on the situation. However, what he finds is the fact that he can potentially move into 3rd by the end of the season. All he needs is a good set of results, but his priority will be to hold off the charges of Martin Rendell and Paul Sims. Well, Lenny Hansen for Bottle Job Racing in 8th place there, only ahead of Daniel Moffat based on result countback, and Valerio Tedeschi completes your top 10. Best the rest of the 11th is Francesco Cordulo for Passione Corse. He's 10 points ahead of Palomaniti. And then we do have the Britons of Sam Smith, Luke Smith and Mickey Ford completing your top 15. And yet score any points this season, Nico Martinuso, Joe Pinder, Roman Shvetsov, and I do believe as well we have there Vincenzo Carrillo and Patrick Dame. So that's how the standings stand, ladies and gentlemen. And now let's talk a little bit about qualifying, because our drivers are out there, they're giving it their all, and the first valley of the qualifying times have started to come in. And well, what a round we also have here, because another thing that many have not considered, we have a new balance of performance coming into this round, because we have moved into the 2026 Season 1 build of iRacing. There have been updates to all the GT4s when it comes to the balance of performance, and therefore things have been shaken up quite considerably here. Albeit one thing that definitely has not been shaken from the very top of the top speed charts, it's the Ford Mustang GT4, of which Martin Blankensteiner right now is currently your provisional pole sitter. And what a provisional pole lap that is. A 2-minute 15.225. He is half a second faster than anybody else, and he'll be hoping that he's able to deliver that for the remainder here, because right now he's looking to be a monster. But the BMW M4 strikes back here, and Francesco Petalin, many of you may remember when we had the chance to chat to him after Sonoma, he was saying to us in the post-round interview, he's one to watch out for at Bathurst. He enjoys the circuit, he loves the BMW, and he feels that the BMW is going to be a very quick car here, and what it shows immediately as he now moves to provisional pole after his first flying lap on a 2-minute 15.141. But it's less than 900ths that separates him and Blankensteiner, and they're a further half a second to Felix Smoggy. As for the AM class right now, Mark Davenport is the fastest in the Mercedes AMG, and well, Davenport definitely has proven to be the fastest of the AM drivers in the second half of the season. He's definitely had one of those seasons that's proven to be rather besotted by bad luck in the first half, and he's really been able to flex his muscle in the second half of the season. Where the luck's gone away, or the bad luck has gone away, he's replaced it with some good luck, but that's the way it sometimes goes. And right now, Davenport, no, it's always swings and roundabouts in motorsport. Indeed, it is for any, because they do say a championship is made up of, let's say, 80% skill, 10% the car, and then 10% fortune, one way or the other. And right now for Mark Davenport, it's definitely looking to be that luck is on his side, albeit you won't try and put the commentator's curse on him. We don't want to do that. But as we do say hello to a couple of you there in the YouTube chat, including none other than Caserta271, who is cheering on, and none other than Francesco Petalin, I do believe. And good evening to you, sir. I hope you're doing well. And I believe that is an Absolute Motorsport Ace-Lift design logo there in your avatar, unless I'm mistaken. Well, you're cheering on the team either way. And we also say hello there to Garbador, who says this is going to be carnage, and will hopefully not, as Davenport there immediately makes a brief tap to the exit wall coming out of Forest Elbow, but hopefully that'll be the most taps to the wall we do see, because we don't want to see anybody in the wall, and ideally we don't see any safety cars here to break up a 40 minutes of racing. And we do have 20 competitors here today. Mav Gardner has yet to set a lap time. It's not because he's got a technical issue with the car, it is because he unfortunately does have a qualifying ban for picking up a total of 6 instant points this season, and well, in fact 6 license points, let's use the correct term, although that in itself, and the fact that Alan McCain also has one, albeit Alan McCain is not here tonight, as I'm to understand it, is a sign of how well behaved our drivers have been all season. Yes, we've had some big incidents, yes, we've had some nasty shunts, but we have yet to see until this round a driver pick up enough license points on their Sim Racing Collective license to be awarded a penalty, and the first of which is a qualifying ban, which means they start from the very back of the field. Indeed, everyone's been on their best behaviour all season. It definitely shows, and it's led to a very competitive season, which is what we want here at the Sim Racing Collective, and it's definitely why I try to keep on coming back season after season and year after year as we bring 2025 to a close. But speaking of something we need to do to bring this qualifying session to a close, we need to get you an on-board lap, ladies and gentlemen. We won't, sadly, be getting an on-board lap of the Manx Racing Porsche 718 Cayman of Craig Murphy, as it has got a lot of damage on it. But what we will do is bring an on-board lap of Palomaniti as he takes us around for a flyer here at Bathurst. As making his way through turn 1 at Hell Corner in second gear, and immediately now stamps the throttle down and heads all the way up the mountain straight. Now, as he does so, if you're wondering what the story behind Hell Corner is, well, we'll talk about that another time, because it is quite a lengthy story. But as he makes his way up mountain, he keeps the car over to the left-hand side here, and this is to get himself set up for the run in towards Griffiths Bend. Looks to his left-hand side of his brake mark and braking at the 100-metre board there, trailing down to third gear, runs a bit too deep there, and I think they're just trying to carry a bit more speed than what he needed to. Beniti immediately parks up there and decides he's not going to go any further, and that's because it's been a compromised lap. But Paul Sims will now carry on from where we've left off, so we jump on board here with the BMW M4 AM driver. So up the hill he goes, and as he makes his way into left-hand kink, into the cutting, it's turns 3 and 4, onto the brakes through turn 3, sharply on the brakes, into third gear, and now out he comes and through Quarry Bend. Here it's about flat out, manage the car, get the steering pointed straight, and come through 5 into 6. It's blindsided here, through 6 into 7, and that's the triple left, turns 8, 9 and 10, that completes with McPhillary Park. Through turn number 9 here, it's going to be a lift before he gets the throttle back on to avoid the exit wall. And now into turn number 10. Plenty of entry curve there. Let the car run slightly. Don't hit the apex curve, otherwise the car will be sent to the grass. Does it lovely now into Skyline, named after the fact you look to the skyline when the sun is rising. And as he comes down the hill now in towards the dipper, trailing down the gearbox there into third gear. And as he clears the dipper, now back on the throttle, full attack mode as he gets ready to go into Forest Elbow. But you'll see, completely blind as he goes through 17, has to brake nice and early, gets the car nice and tight to the wall, carries a lot of understeer with him, however, and I think seems they're making a bit of an error, carrying a bit too much speed through 17, and it meant the car was essentially straight line towards the inside of 18. That's not what you want, because he comes out of Forest Elbow now onto Commonwealth Straight, and this is going to be absolutely flat out every step of the way. And keep in mind here that Sims is pushing the best part of 240 kilometers an hour, but we have to leave the lap there, ladies and gentlemen, because he's out of time, and it means we're now to set the grid for our one and only race today. So as they make the way onto the grid, this is how they'll line up for our season finale race in Australia at the Mount Panorama circuit for round 6 of 6 of season 3 of the Sim Racing Collective GT4 series, brought to you on iRacing. Martin Blankensteiner then takes his first pole position of the season for Cracked Racing on a 2-minute 14.956, and in 2 tenths faster than Francesco Petrolin, who lines up in second place. The absolute merciful ace of drive will be gutted to know he's not on pole, but also be very aware of the fact that he's got plenty of opportunities here to try and take the win today, and the Italian driver needs every point he can. Jack Southfield starts in third for the Sim Racing Collective Esports in the lone Aston Martin V8 Vantage. He'll be joined on the second row of the grid by fellow pro driver Craig Twardock for MSA Racing, and the gap between the two of them, another 2 tenths. Then it was a further 300s to Kieran Sharp in a McLaren, who he spoke to me in the build-up to today, and he was saying this McLaren definitely doesn't seem to have the acceleration it used to have. Well, the Sim Racing Collective Esports rider still putting himself fifth. He'll be happy with that. The best part of 1.5 tenths ahead of Felix Smoggy for Cracked Racing, who rounds off at your top 3 rows. Then we have Matt Sheraton, who starts the day in 7th for Aztec Racing as he looks to try and seal that 5th place in the championship, ahead of Bart Raven, who takes his maiden pole position of feature race this season in the AM class. Well done to the Dutchman there for Cracked Racing. A brilliant effort from him in the 51. He in the end was ahead of the 57 of Andrew Pike for the Sim Racing Collective Esports by 0.5 tenth. Then Mark Davenport followed up in 10th place, and the Manx Racing driver, who all he needs to do is finish ahead of his rivals, and where he started right now puts him in good stead. Well, he starts second in the AM class and rounds off the overall top 10. From the Isle of Man driver, it's then Nick Lewins, who starts in 11th for iRacing Esports, best of the rest, ahead of Martin Rendell, with Rendell once again delivering in qualifying, but can he deliver it in the race? And on row number 7 behind them is Marlin Schwab firstly in 13th for DLR FP1, and he is ahead of the privateer of Paul Sims, who starts the day in 14th. Then we have Craig Murphy for Manx Racing, who seems to have struggled in qualifying, and the damage on the car definitely was indicative of his struggles, but he'll start 15th ahead of Clive Bourne for Big Pig Racing by VRS, who achieves one of his best qualifying performances of the season in 6th place in the AM class, ahead of Valerio Petretti, who once again struggles in qualifying, starting 17th for the Italian job, ahead of Paolo Maniti, his fellow countryman on the 9th row of the grid, and then completing your top 20, it's Lenny Hansen for Bottle Job Racing, and Valerio Tedeschi, the privateer. It's a pair of AMs there, and then on the final row of the grid, joining at the close of the session was Alan McCain. He'll start 22nd, albeit with a qualifying ban for iRacing Esports, but ahead of him, because he joined the session earlier, Mav Garno starts 21st for the Sim Racing Collective Esports. So the 2 qualifying ban drivers there start from the very back of the field, ladies and gentlemen, and that is how your 22 car field is set for this season finale. And we're just waiting now on 1 or 2 cars to take their final spots in the grid, but when they do, we have got a partial formation lap here, and it begins on the run into the chase. I can tell you one thing, ladies and gentlemen, when we go green flag racing, it is going to be a 40-minute race that will pass as quick as a flash as all our drivers look to chase this down. But, of course, if you're Francesco Petrolin, right now he'll see a clear road in front of him, sans the safety car. Martin Blankensteiner, however, will be on the left of him, and for Blankensteiner, in a Ford Mustang that's proven to be very quick over a single lap, can the Danishman find a way to be able to win today? Can he bring home that maiden win of the season, with the wins having been locked up between the Sim Racing Collective drivers and also Francesco Pettelin for the majority of the races this season, with Craig Twardock being the anomaly in effect. Well, right now, it's all about that start and who can be leading into turns 3 and 4, and then after that, it's all down to keeping it out of the wall and keeping it together over the time. But as the field pulls away, well, the safety car brings them up to speed. There'll be a bit of tyre temperature to build and brake temperature, and remember, we have seen this season with the new model for these GT4s just how tricky it is to get that tyre temperature even after 2 or 3 flying laps at shorter circuits. So our drivers will definitely feel as though they need to drive on ice for the first couple of laps. And those who can be brave, they may just be able to come away some extra places. But those who get it wrong, however, they may end up all the way at the back and they'll have all the work to do. But to the front of the field we go then, and it's to Martin Blankensteiner to take us to the green for 40 minutes of racing here in Australia. And it's lights out, away we go then for our season finale here at Bathurst as Blankensteiner gets a good start, but look at Salford looking to the inside. Pettelin meanwhile goes into the middle of the road, then decides to go all the way out. No, Salford's going to go for the move. Salford's free wide in. This is risky here for Pettelin on the outside, but somehow they all make it. Car out wide there. That was the BMW there. Bart Raven taking a small trip, but he's been able to bring it back aboard. And look at Pettelin on the left-hand side of your picture. Pettelin right now is going to go for this as the Aston Martin now accelerates the Ford Mustang for a brief moment, and then it's going to be the BMW and the Mustang every step of the way. But Salford's being pushed forward here as here comes Twardock. Twardock's going to creep up the outside there, moves into second place. Brilliant start from Twardock, brilliant start from Southfield, and Pettelin's on the attack. Pettelin is not giving up here as they make their way through Griffiths Bend. The whole field has made its way through the opening 2 corners, which is absolutely brilliant. And right now, Francesco Pettelin does squeeze back ahead as Twardock side by side here, coming into the cutting versus Blankensteiner. And Blankensteiner right now falls behind as we had a bit of an instant further back for Hansen and Maniti. Albeit on call down camera, we'll try and catch that a brief moment. Meanwhile, in the AM class, Bart Raven and Mark Davenport, we thought they'd be going toe-to-toe from the start, and we weren't wrong as they come through turn 6 into 7. And right now, Raven is holding on. He's tucking into the tyre Sheraton, and Davenport's falling a little bit further behind, but I can imagine that Davenport right now doesn't want to get too close. He wants to give himself visibility going for this opening lap because it only takes one small slide here on the mountain and suddenly it can all fall apart, and nobody wants to get caught out in these opening couple of laps. But over the crest they come, and as they do, well, the Porsche drives had a brilliant start as well. Craig Murphy's had a phenomenal start, getting that place into 14th, getting ahead of Paul Sims in the Porsche, given the fact he hasn't got the straight line speed in that car, but he's definitely got the confidence. He's got it switched on nice and early, and that's what he wants as they all come down in towards Forest Elbow. And those who have left it already, when see Twardock right now ahead of Blankenstein and Smoggy. Sharp has fallen back a place down to 6th. How I get the feeling right now the McLaren driver is just taking his time and trying to get himself warmed up here. He's got to be inventive on strategy if he wants to try and leap ahead of these guys. They make the way down Comrod. Now Twardock in 3rd. He's got Blankenstein looking around the outside of him. It'll be to the inside of the chase chicane. Felix Smoggy meanwhile thinks about making it 3 wide, then decides against it. Blankenstein up the inside for Cracked Racing here. Gets it absolutely stopped at a dime. They rub pain, and as they make the way through, and Twardock is escorted out into the grass, and we can see that Blankenstein lets it rejoin, but not about Felix Smoggy trying to fight a way through, and his teammate now for Cracked Racing is trying to capitalise on the situation as Sharp looks up the inside here, but it's enabling the top 2 to peel away as Matt Sheraton watches on here and thinks, okay, how can I get involved, because they're absolutely going hammer and tongs straight out of the bat. But meanwhile at the front of the field, after 1 lap, it's Salford ahead of Pettelin, followed by Blankensteiner. Then we have Smoggy, Twardock, Sharp, Sheraton. That's top 7 of pro drivers, and Sheraton looking around the outside there, Sharp, but it's not going to work at this time round. Then we have Raven leading in the AMs. That's Bart Raven in 8th place ahead of Mark Davenport. That's your top 2 of AM. And then we have round off your top 10, the pro of Andrew Pike, who's had a bit of a slow start to this one for the Sim Racing Collective Esports, but don't count him out. He's a much better driver over the distance versus the sprint races that we've seen. And then we have Martin Rendell, 3rd of your AMs, currently running a length overall, best of the rest, ahead of Clemens and Schwab. And Nick Clemens right now fighting hard here in the Rexy machine to try and keep Martin Schwab at bay, but Schwab is not giving in here and is absolutely poking left, right and centre. Craig Murphy and Paul Sims complete your top 15. Craig Murphy still ahead of Sims, and right now Murphy doing enough here to guarantee 4th place in the AM Championship, but I think he wants a little bit more as Valerio Petretti's had a nightmare start to this race, and indeed so has Palamaniti. We've got a couple of replays to show you, ladies and gentlemen, and here we go then as to what happened on lap number 1 for Hansen and Maniti firstly. So this was Lenny Hansen making his way out to turn number 2, and as they made the way up the hill, well, oh, goodness me, they got clipped on each other, and as they did, as a result, both cars into the barrier. Can we get an on board there from Hansen? Yes, we can. Let's listen in. Oh, goodness me, that's a very difficult one to unpick there, even from the onboard camera perspective, because the argument will be who squeezed whom. I wonder if we can get a blimp view. No, we can't. It's not the most ideal camera angle, but what you can see is the two drivers got stuck with each other in the end, and I think they converged onto a single racing line, and that's how they came into contact. But the question is, what exactly happened to Valerio Petretti? And, well, we're not exactly sure, to be honest. However, we will try and find out. We look back in time to a degree, and this was, I believe, Valerio Petretti making his way into the pit lane. Well, there's damage to the front of the car there for the Italian job driver, and I think he's just had a shunt with somebody over the mountain or with a barrier. One of the two, and Petretti's just had to come in. He's picked up damage, and in the end, the car not in the happiest of places, but that's what's happened to him. So back to live racing we go. So for Valerio Petretti, it has been a heartbreak right at the start, but he's not out of it yet. Oh, he only needs one safety car, and that will bring him right back into the hunt. The same for Paolo Maniti. But both drivers there will have their degree of frustrations, and they won't be too pleased with how things have played out. But meanwhile, Mav Gardner, who's starting from the very back of the field, he's made a lot of progress. He's going to make another place here as he tucks up the inside of Paul Sims coming out of Murray's Bend. And as they head in towards turn one right now, well, there's a bit of an adventure going on in front, as that is Martin Rendell under pressure from Marlon Schrobb. And meanwhile, Mav Gardner in the DTM-inspired livery Mercedes makes way at the inside there of Craig Murphy. And will move a little bit further forward. In fact, that's not Craig Murphy's pass. My apologies, it's Paul Sims he's passed. And that's opened up the door for Clive Bourne in the big peak racing by VRS Mustang to also try to outtrack the BMW. But look at the speed equivalency between the Mustang and the BMW. The Mustang hasn't got much over the BMW. It's sixth gear where it's got the advantage. Otherwise, they are practically even. And we do know this BMW's got a lot of rotation here. A bit too much rotation, perhaps, on the fixed setup. However, the fact that it's got so much rotation gives it the speed in the corners, and that's what these two are so equal. As Alan McCain makes contact there with Sims on turning into the cutting, gets squeezed to the barrier, and, well, McCain's not going too happy. He'll be arguing the fact that Sims cut off his nose, and I think Sims would argue to him, well, why are you poking your nose there in the first place? I've got to turn left at some point, surely. But it'll be the difference of the two drivers' opinions there, and I'm sure they'll have a chat about it after the race as we jump on board here with Alan McCain, who's currently in 18th, having started from 22nd place, and he's still trying to pick up a bit more time. However, he is gradually running out of time, as is the way of racing, but he makes his way over Skyline this time. He looks one way than the other, and he's not going to find a way through this time, as he's just got to keep that pressure on and try to goad the man in front of him into a bit of a mistake. They wind the way down, and right now, well, they stay absolutely even as they head in towards Forest Elbow. But from them, let's make our way back towards the front of the AM class. And here is Bart Raven in the turquoise-coloured cracked racing machine with the orange wind mirrors. He's trying to stay in the toe of Matt Cheverton. It's working out for him right now as downput is gradually being dropped. We're starting to see this BMW being a little bit quicker over a lap's distance versus the Mercedes. However, don't read too much into it yet, ladies and gentlemen, because, of course, downput might be thinking about doing some fuel saving here in order to be able to give himself a bit of a strategic option later on in the race. Given the fact that we have seen this season, many of you may remember, of course, what was the attempt made by, I believe it was by the FD Racing drivers all the way back at Mugello in the 40-minute race there, when we did have the one safety car, well, the initial safety car, we should say, and then we had the second safety car, but off the first safety car, the fact that it lasted so long because it was a long lap meant that in the end we actually removed the need for any driver to put fuel in the car in the pit stop, and everybody came in to put fresh tyres on, other than, I believe it was Mickey Ford at the time from FD Racing, although it may have been the other driver in the team, to be fair. It may have been Luke Smith, and I apologise if I got them in the wrong order, but either way they attempted it, and then there was a mistake on the restart that cost them the strategy, which did see, I think it was Luke Smith, in fact, leap all the way to the front of the field overall, not just in AM. So Danport right now might be hedging his bets. He might be protecting the tyres early on here to make sure he's then got some aggression and some options available versus Raven later on in the race. It's not to say Raven's not quick, as meanwhile Felix Smoggy here looking for an opportunity to try and get ahead of Blankensteiner, but he's got to worry more about Sharp and Twildop behind, as Twildop escorts himself wide there at turn number 4, and Sharp in the end is going to go all the way around the outside through Quarry Bend. That's brave, it's bold, and Kieran Sharp's not done yet, because here comes Twildop back at him, but surely one of them's got to give here as they go into turns 8 and 9, and in the end it is going to be Twildop who just falls behind there, but he's not done yet. They go to McPhillamy and he at last backs off there. My good Lord, Craig, that's commitment and a half. Most drivers would back out immediately, but not you, sir, and I can understand why. That was close. That was absolutely brilliant, and that's what we love to see in these GT4s, and right now we're definitely a bit of a hoonigan there, or a hooligan I should say, as the Ken Block inspired BMW driver right now is pushing Kieran Sharp every step of the way. But what a brilliant bit of battling. We're going to need a replay of that shortly as they come down through Forest Elbow, and right now we're going to stay transfixed to this rearward camera angle off the back of Kieran Sharp's TSRC McLaren, so we need to see the speed delta here in the slipstream And keep in mind, of course, that Felix Woggy is 1.5 seconds up the road. Sharp is going to get barely a slipstream, if at all, here as they make the way over the rise. And it does seem as though, in fact, for all the worries he's had about the straight line speed, it does pick up a good amount of momentum here once it goes downhill. And right now, Twadok just not able to find a way to get alongside, so therefore has to wait his turn. But understandably, I think that pressure is going to build little by little as Matt Sheraton will watch on from behind. And Sheraton has been very peaceful so far, and that's not to be rude about the Aztec Racing driver. I would have thought he would have got a bit more involved in this battle. I wonder whether perhaps right now he's playing the bigger picture game here, which Matt has done in several races this season. He has really thought about the end goal of the race, not just in the here and now, and that's a real sign of a driver, even as a pro, who has really developed. Of course, keep in mind he was your AM champion from Season 2 of the TSRC GT4 series, and right now having moved up to the pro class this season, he's definitely building a pro mindset here, and it really is good to see. But what's also good to see here is in the here and now, Kieran Sharp having to go defensive versus Craig Twadok. Twadok looking around the outside here at Griffiths Bend. It's not going to come forth at the moment, but Kieran Sharp definitely being made to hustle left, right and centre as we look to Mav Gardner and Marlon Schwab as they push each other up the hill. And as they do, Mav Gardner right now, well, he is still just ahead of Marlon Schwab, the Porsche driver here, huffing and puffing in a car that definitely doesn't have the straight line speed compared to its fellow country counterpart. But that Mercedes is not breaking away here, and these drivers right now keeping each other honest. Round they go again through the cutting, and as they do, we take a look back in time at some of the brilliant batting from earlier on, including firstly what happened between Nick Clewins and Martin Rendell on lap number 2. Now this was a drag race between Clewins, the pro, versus the AM of Rendell. The way you can tell them, Clewins is in the orange Roxy machine, meanwhile Martin Rendell in the turquoise and pink machine. And in the end, Clewins up the inside before the chase and gets the move done there quite straightforward. Rendell didn't want to fight it too hard, but Clewins almost removed himself from the position by running a bit deep there at the chicane. That was the overspeed, catching the number 13 driver out. We then had this for Clive Bourne versus Paul Sims, and this was the aftermath of Mav Gardner's move. Into turn number 1, went up the inside, and then, well, the door was open, and well, it was the opportunity there for Clive Bourne to tuck in and take full place in the AM class eventually, Martin Rendell coming up behind as well. And then we did have this incredible battle, of course, between Kieran Sharp and Craig Twadok, and this was the battle. So into the cutting they went on lap number 4. Sharp went up the inside here. Twadok went to turn in and realised he had a cheeky McLaren on his inside. And Sharp at this point absolutely said to himself, right, I'm going to go for this. And if it doesn't work out, well, we're both going to end up in the wall. And Sharp committed. Twadok paid his respect. And they made the way out to turn 6 and 7 there. And Sharp got ahead initially, but Twadok wasn't quite done until they finally got to turn number 9. And that's when he backed off. Looked up the inside into McPhillamy, but it was more of a feint rather than an attack. But what a battle between them. And then we had this for Alan McCain only moments later. Coming in towards McPhillamy Park, the Irish Esports Mercedes driver made his way through, went a bit wide. Oh, goodness me. Did he avoid the wall? No, he did not. And for Alan, that is a race that's gone backwards. It's gone into the wall. And I can imagine that's a car that has had to grudgingly make its way to the pit lane. And that's what happens when you hit either the inside curb of McPhillamy Park or you hit that exit curb. The car is bounced off its suspension and you very quickly find your way to the barrier. But back to your live racing we come. And as we do, well, Kieran Sharp continues to fight here. Felix Moggy and Craig Twadok and Matt Sheraton now all fighting behind the McLaren driver. And well, it is spot the odd one out here as Sheraton goes to the move. Oh, that's a big lunge. Howard Twadok sees it coming, but there is a rub between the two and Twadok is pushed out slightly. Oh, but I think they'll get away with that. I think they'll be seen as a bit of a racing incident and a bit of contact between them, given how tight it was. But Sheraton deciding, right, I need to do something now. But it does seem as though Twadok is struggling a little bit as we ride on board on the front bumper of the 200 from MSA Racing. Oh my goodness, Craig, don't keep doing that. That's a nasty knock to the barrier there. And well, it was quite a flush hit, so it's not going to do too much damage, but I can imagine that front right suspension is going to be knocked slightly out of alignment. And what that will mean, if it's significant enough in terms of misalignment, he will now start to have to point the steering wheel slightly off centre when he's going down a straight in order to get the car to point in a straight line. That can lead to excess tyre wear. It can also lead to very unpredictable handling, the greater the misalignment of the suspension and the tyres. So Twadok's got to be careful of that, because right now the more hits he takes, the more pronounced effect it is. It really is a domino effect. Every time you do it after the first contact, it gets worse if you keep hitting the same side of the car. So that's what he's got to be careful of there, but it's such an easy error to make. And as they make the way down the Conrad Straight, these GT4 cars, they're quite resilient. However, even they have their limits of what knocks and bangs they could, what they can take. But from them, As Twaddock dives at the inside, then gives Sheraton a little bit of his own juice and medicine. I suspect there's contact between the two of them. They turn sideways here, and they're not giving up either as they make their way back onto the circuit. Well, they let Bart Raven on through, and now Coda Cross. Well, Sheraton goes defensive here. Danport's going to try and go around the outside. Oh, it's a big dive at the inside, and well, I think we've got a rivalry here that's turning into a bit of bad blood as Mark Danport just backs off entirely. It leads to a scramble behind here, and well, Andrew Pike goes up the inside. Danport doesn't want any part of this. The AM Championship leader with that 10-point advantage over Bart Raven does not want to risk it, and right now things with the fish as they currently stand, I think Danport would still take it by a slender margin. So Danport is really thinking about the bigger picture. He's done the maths, he's brought out the abacus earlier today and decided all I need to do is finish one place behind Raven to get the job done, and so be it, he says. They make the way up the hill, but right now he's right in the medley of several pro drives here, all looking a bit ferocious as Pike does clear Danport there, and now Twaddock's going to be all over the back of Danport, and I suspect right now Twaddock's going to be thinking, and Mark, if you don't move aside shortly, I'm going to make you move aside. I have got a little bit of retribution to find up the road, and we'll hopefully he'll keep it clean as there's the move immediately up the inside for Craig Twaddock. The MSA racing driver is not hanging around at this point, but goodness me, what a moment it was between those two drivers, and hopefully we don't see a repeat of that, because at the end of the day, if we see a repeat of it, I suspect we're going to be ending up in the Super Touring era, albeit in TSRC for the GT4 racing here. And if you're wondering what I mean by that, if you look back at the 1990s BTCC, you'll definitely see that sometimes it was more about how many pieces of paneling they could knock off the car versus actually keeping it clean, and that's the last thing we want to entertain. But I'm sure they'll both get their sensible heads on, and the red mist will go away. As meanwhile, one thing that's not going away at the front of the field is the lead of this race. Jack Southfield is leading, however Francesco Pettinen and Martin Blankensteiner are being brought along behind him. The gap between the top three right now is 1.1 seconds, and it's 3 different cars in the 3 top positions as they make the way on down, with Southfield, Pettinen and Blankensteiner in an Aston Martin, BMW and Ford respectively. And all 3 of these cars have definitely shown different strengths and weaknesses this season. The Aston Martin really has been the unicorn car of the field because we've only got the one driver running it, and what we do know is the gearing and the ratios of this Aston Martin are very uncomfortable for the uninitiated. You do have to drive this car right at the top end of the RPM band typically, or you lose a lot of torque, and right now Southwood is doing an incredible job of essentially skating the car around the circuit. But from them we look back to Clive Bourne, who's all over the back of Craig Murphy, as these two continue to fight, albeit Bourne has found his way past Martin Schwab just now. He's put himself ahead of the pro driver, so Martin Schwab here taking a peek one way then the other, but can't find a way through. Now, as we are 16 minutes into this race, the big question mark you might be wondering right now is why is nobody pitting, given the fact we are expecting there to be quite a lengthy fuel pit stop? And I suspect right now it is because a lot of drivers are perhaps waiting to see when somebody else pits, particularly if you're towards the front of the field, because the pit stop here is relatively short. It's a short pit lane, it's quite quick in and out of the pit, and what it does mean is that if you pit from the lead of the race, you're very likely to come out in some degree of traffic. And as we have seen, if you end up in traffic around it and you have to fight your way past it, you either got to be very bold under braking, or what ends up happening is you're going to lose a lot of time. So we're not expecting the top 10 to pit at any point right now. We're expecting them to run their fuel tanks absolutely till the bone dry. Meanwhile, further down the order, that's where you can make up time. For example, if you are Martin Rendles at the back of this group, Martin might want to consider pitting soon because of the fact the gamble he takes is a lot less risky compared to if you're, say, Bart Raven at the front of the field, because you've got less cars behind and the gaps between the cars are much greater. But speaking of things being great there, or not so great, Clive Bourne's had a bit of a moment as he has another knock to the wall there. That car does not look to be pointing straight, as Bourne in the end has side by side with Martin Schwab. Schwab tries to go around the outside of turn 9. Bourne's holding on, but Clive Bourne's definitely made an error of some description, and Schwab in the end can't quite make it work out. Let's get a replay of that when we can, but it definitely was a bit of a dicey moment between the two of them as they come down the hill, and Martin Rendell continues to watch this battle, and we watch it for a bit longer, riding on board here with your 5th place AM driver, who has the Pro and the AM in front of him. He wants the Pro out of the way, I suspect. He'd love to get Schwab out of the picture and then just look for the move, but it's a lot easier said than done as they come down, and 2 Porsches chasing down a Ford Mustang. Well, right now that Ford Mustang's got it all on the straights. You can see just how much Bourne pulls away, and Rendell here just watching and waiting to see where this can take him. Of course, one of the things he'll be hoping as well is that with Schwab trying to make his way past Bourne, this is going to help him out a little bit more. However, it's easier said than done. But down that stretch they come, and as they do, we make our way back to Craig Twaddock, who has just made his way past Andrew Pike. He'll now be chasing after Bart Raven, and then Matt Sheraton, the man who he had the excursion with only about 3 laps ago. But Twaddock right now definitely has got the bit between his teeth here. He's pushing very hard to get these places back. And Twardog right now, if you exclude your race leader, Twardog is currently one of the fastest drivers on circuit. So excluding the top 3, Twardog's then the next fastest all the way down in 8th place. He is going some here, as we do say hello to a few more of you there in the YouTube chat, including Gareth Ronda, who's cheering on the Cracked Racing gang, and also there we say hello to Striker353, who's got his fingers in his mouth. He's biting them, biting his nails. I believe that's what the emoji is meant to be, and I believe that is in reference to the Twardog-Cheverton battle earlier on, which has definitely got a lot of people tuning in with their hairs standing up on end. But right now, standing up to the test of pressure is Kieran Sharp, as Felix Smoggy continues to push left, right and centre behind. And Smoggy right now in the Cracked Racing Ford Mustang that we jump on board with can't find a way past. Now, it's definitely very interesting here in the fact I think Sharp has found the comfort zone now of that McLaren. Again, remember, we did say earlier that he's really been struggling with the car all day today, and has definitely noticed a bit of a change to the car in terms of its characteristics since the most recent balance performance adjustment. But I think what he's found is what it's lost in terms of low-end acceleration and torque, it's now made up for with a little bit more straight-line speed. So therefore, as Smoggy continues to follow in, the problem that Smoggy has in the Cracked Racing Ford Mustang as he's still got the quite understeery American muscle car. And what this means for him is that essentially he's got to be as close as he possibly can coming out of these corners to then be able to slipstream his way past. But if he falls backwards coming out of Forest Elbow like that, and the gap actually opens up to the best part of 4.5 tenths, as much as he will now gain here down Conrad, and he's now 3.5 tenths away as they make their way to the halfway point of the straight, which is noted by the Fuso board. He won't get close enough unless he goes for a lunge. But the problem with lunging here is, what does the Mustang have a problem with? It's a very heavy car. Under braking, if you're going to go very late on the brakes, you're going to put a huge amount of pressure on the front tyres, on the front brake pads, and you will overheat them very quickly if you keep doing it. So therefore, Felix Smoggy right now doesn't have the option to lunge, unlike the McLaren or the Porsche, which are much more comfortable. They're lighter machines by comparison, and that is the challenge. So it's going to be a bit back and forth between these drivers as they head onwards. But Felix Smoggy right now continuing to look for that fourth place, but he's going to have to just keep that pressure on. It's not going to come immediately. Now from them, we come back to a bit of fighting here, as this is Craig Twardog up the inside of AM leader Bart Raven, the Cracked Racing driver here. He's definitely got his sensible head on here as Raven. He knows that right now, leading this race in the AM class, he needs that. That's what he's got to do on his end to try and guarantee that he becomes your AM champion for this season. Whereas Mark Davenport is still in second, only 2 places overall behind. You see him in the rear of the picture for a brief moment. But Raven doesn't want to get involved in these pro drivers, and that is the sign of a driver right now who has set his priorities straight. The AMs earlier on in the season, particularly the likes of Raven and Davenport, they do enjoy fighting a little bit with the pros, so it is a test of their ability. But you notice once they start to realise they are competing for the AM crown, there's no value in fighting a pro driver unless it's to keep them between them and another AM driver, so use them as a bit of buffer. Suddenly trying to shield themselves using a pro driver or fighting a pro driver in general actually becomes less valuable, and Raven definitely right now playing with his sensible head on. Meanwhile, a bit further back, Valerio Petretti, the Italian job driver who had to come into the pits at the end of the open lap due to damage picked up on the front of the car. He makes another place. That's on Lenny Hansen for 7th in AM and now into 19th overall. But he's got a bit of work to do because the next driver up the road is Alan McCain, who's a pro. And then it's a further 3 seconds to Valerio Tedeschi, the Italian driver here, the privateer in the 69 car, who's looking all nice and right now is running in 6th in the AMs, 17th overall. But as we see him make his way up the hill, we need to take a look back in time to what happened to Martin Rendell only a moment ago, because he has been involved in a bit of a shunt. So this is Rendell making his way in towards turn number 2, carried way too much speed and then ran out into the exit curb. The car slid loose, tried to get under control and in the end hit the barrier, rolled backwards, fortunately out of the way of Paul Sims. But for Martin Rendell, a frustrating moment in his race, no doubt about it, and has sent him backwards as we come back to your racing. And Valerio Tedeschi there giving up the space to, I believe that might be your leaders coming up for, unless I'm mistaken. In fact, I am very sorely mistaken. That was Alan McCain passing Valerio Tedeschi there, and well, our leader's still a long way away from putting a lap on the field. As we come back to Jack Salford, we have our first pit stop as I look out my Conte booth window. Andrew Piker's coming in from what was at the time 9th place. He's made his way into the pits, and therefore I think he'll be feeling now the time is right to come in. So does Mav Gardner. So TSRC, they may have worked out a bit of strategy here as Petterlin looks one way then the other. They're all cognizant now. We're heading to the pit window here, and it's Petterlin who's going on the attack versus Salford as they head up the hill. We look back from the rear of the 98 for TSRC. Petterlin needs this win. Salford could be the kingmaker. for Tom Davidson, depending on how the points play out. So right now, it is all or nothing here for Petrolin. However, we know that Francesco's got a very sensible head on him. He doesn't just go for moves. He's proven that time and time again this season, particularly, of course, at what was VIR, where he yielded the lead of the race in the second sprint race because he didn't want the pressure of Davidson, and he tried to put the pressure on later on in the day. And the same at Sonoma last time out. Race number 1, he really struggled with tyre wear, but in race number 2, with the assistance of the safety car, he was able to better manage the tyre wear in the longer race, and therefore able to chase down a podium. Peterson definitely has worked very hard coming into this round, but all that hard work right now, he's got to try and prove it's been worth it, because he's still got Blankensteiner behind him, and Southfield right now in this Aston Martin is refusing to budge. These three drivers, all very equal, all right now keeping each other honest, and there's nothing between them. The only question mark, of course, will be how much fuel saving has each driver done here and how economical are their cars. We do know the Ford Mustang, Martin Blankensteiner's car, is normally very aggressive on fuel. However, he is at the back of the three-car train with the straight line speed advantage, so therefore is he being able to fuel save? As Craig Tardot, meanwhile, passes Cheverton. Well, it all begins again then, ladies and gentlemen. Here they go down Conrod. Now, I think Cheverton might have got it wrong out of Forest Elbow. We will get a replay of that shortly. It looks like Tardot there's taken the place. Perhaps they've both calmed it down and realised they don't need to fight, but Cheverton here now is gearing up for the fight as they come in towards the chase. On the inside he goes. Now he's into the left-hander here to begin the chicane. Contact between the two of them. That was under braking there, and well, I think that might have been Tardot's car, and his elbows out again. Come on guys, keep it clean. And in the end, well, Cheverton gives as good as he's been given, and Tardot is sent aside, and Cheverton comes into the pit lane here. He doesn't want any more of this, and he makes his way down pit row, and I think Craig Tardot at this point will be very grateful. I can imagine that there might be a few words between these two after the race in terms of that, and I think the stewards will definitely be getting involved afterwards as well. But they definitely right now, if there was any mention of keep it calm guys and carry on, well, they're carrying on, but they're not keeping it calm. But with that, as they make the way on through, meanwhile we look back to the very front, and as they head up the hill, well, our leaders right now have yet to budge. They're all staying out there, and Southfield, Peterson and Blankensteiner all together within 0.6 of a second as they come in towards the cutting. But it is so close between them as we jump on board with the third man in the party. And well, the Danishman right now absolutely throwing everything at this in order to stay with them. The pace is incredible between the three drivers. They're the only drivers right now, excluding Kieran Sharp and Felix Boggy, who are lapping in the 2-minute 15s. And when we say they're lapping in the 2-minute 15s, they have been constantly lapping in the mid 2:15s, whereas everyone else has been the high 2:15s or higher in the 16s. So right now they are throwing everything at this. And the aim of the game here really is to outdrive the driver behind you in front of you. Of course, when you're the leader, Southfield, it's all you can do. Whereas the drivers behind, they just need to stay close enough, theoretically, to be able to slipstream their way along. But we are 26 minutes through this race. We've still got more to come. And as they make the way out turn number 18 in towards 19, but Blankenstein there gets it a bit wrong coming out Forest Elbow this time. Cobb rolls deep on him. And the 96 driver here right now, I think, imagining to himself that he doesn't want to keep making those little errors, those micro errors that just cost him some time. Well, he'll be able to get it back for now, but if he makes another mistake like that, I can imagine that gap is going to become more and more pronounced. As Pettin there, 2.5 attempts, he comes in towards the chase, thinks about the dive, then thinks again. I think right now he's got to surely be starting to consider, does he go for the undercut strategy here? Does he risk it? And the answer is not quite yet. Pettin keeping everybody guessing there. He put himself in the middle of the road to make Southfield wonder what was coming. Was it a dive? Was it a duck to the pits? Or was it neither? It was neither in the end. And now onwards towards another lap, onto lap number 13. Pettin looking up the inside. Again, doesn't quite find it this time, but he's really trying to get into Southfield's head. Southfield does make a small error there coming out of turn number 1. It runs a bit wide up onto the exit curb as Twadot Davenport and Clemens are into the pit lane. We'll keep you advised as to Sheraton versus Twadot, because they will be emerging back together. But meanwhile, here comes Pettin in the tow. He's got the overspeed here, but he's going to be able to go around the outside. Southfield puts himself right in the middle of the road. A bit of contact between the two of them, but they'll get away with that. Southfield goes defensive. Pettin pushing hard right now as they roll the way through. No change at least now as we ride on board with a BMW M4 from Absolute Motorsport Ace Lift. And Blankenstein's been brought right back into this as a result of their excursions. But coming through at the cutting this time, you can see Patton how much this means to him. He wants that win. He needs that win to try and guarantee his championship crown, and Davidson being absent. And that's the way it goes, of course. That's why you have a drop score in the season. So that way, if you have to miss a round, it doesn't hurt you as much. But Patton right now needs every point he can to steal this away. And going in towards McPhillamy Park with 12 minutes plus the final lap to go. Patton is huffing and puffing, but can he blow the resilient barrier that Southwood has put up down here for TSRC? As Pelling gets it wrong there for his skyline, he just about keeps it together. My good lord, if he'd been any further left, that would have been riding like a skateboarder over the apex of the run through turn number 13, and that could have been it for Petlin. But that goes to show you right now, he is throwing everything at this, but is he pushing a bit too hard? Well, right now he's got to push hard, there's no doubt about it, but that's put Blankenstein right onto the back of him as we look back from the rear now, the BMW M4 from Italy, and as they come down Conrad here, Blankenstein, does he think about a move here? If he does, what he is essentially going to do, he's going to split this top three, with Southfield being given an opportunity to break away. Petlin puts it right on the racing line here, and Blankenstein doesn't go for it. He knows it's not worth it. If they do, they lock themselves into a battle for second place, not the win of this race. So right now, Blankenstein are really thinking 4 car moves ahead. Meanwhile, Petlin's got to get right back onto Southfield. He does so, as Southfield has a bit of a slow run, but Blankenstein ducks into the pit. He decides, right, they're both pushing each other to the limit. I need to now try and do something different, and Blankenstein, he's got the options available as he charges his way into the pit lane there. And absolutely hopping his way over the curbs. He couldn't be any more precise than that. Meanwhile, further back, Sheraton and Twardock, they have re-emerged together, albeit Sheraton ahead of Twardock here by a very small margin between the two of them, and that's how they've changed, at least for now, as we've got Blankenstein and Smoggy into the pit lane. Bart Raven has yet to pit, nor has Craig Murphy or Paul Sims, your top 3 in AM. Mark Davenport has pitted. Meanwhile, the man who's running in second in AM, he's bought himself plenty of clear track, as Craig Murphy, his teammates now made his way into the pits. Manx Racing out there in full force service in their team's cars, and right now Mark Davenport here, if he can put together an incredible lap, he may just be able to get a bit closer to Raven and take him the distance. The same for Martin Blankenstein, a nice and quick stop there, 9 seconds stationary there for the Ford Mustang driver from Cracked Racing. It's the fastest pit stop of everybody, and as soon as I say that, Andrew Pike delivers an 8-second pit stop, but right now it shows you the two drivers who've saved all the fuel, and they've saved it up as much as they possibly can to be able to leapfrog some time, but we'll see whether that time comes in handy or whether they fall a little bit late on the schedule. But with that, it does mean the racing now calms down for a brief moment. In fact, our leaders have separated. Southfield as Sonny really pushed at the start of this lap. Now, we're not quite sure whether Petlin's made an error, but Southfield is pulling that gap over to 1.2 seconds, and Petlin's got to try and bring that gap back down, because Southfield here, I think that's a sign that Southfield's coming in at the end of this lap, but look what's happened. Has Southfield caught traffic at the wrong time? That, I believe, in front of it is Palamaniti and Valeria Tedeschi, and in fact, Tedeschi gets it wrong! Oh no! That's a disaster! And around the outside goes Southfield. How? He managed to keep that on the road. My good lord! And for Jack Southfield, there are moments in motorsport where it's real simulated, which make the difference between a pro and the ultimate professional, and there Jack Southfield somehow finding a way to avoid what could have been a three-way pile-up coming out Forest Elbow. Petton has gained a little bit of time, but Southfield just about keeping it together, and I think his heart would have been in his mouth there. The whole TSRC garage, I think, would have been absolutely holding its breath. And Petlin, well, when he looks back at this later, I don't think he's aware of what happened. He's going to find out that there, Southfield could have seen this race end up in arrears. But into the pits they both come. They've decided now's the time. I think those fuel tanks are practically running dry. Kieran Sharp will most likely defect his way to the pit lane as well. Yes, he does. The 23 McLaren that's definitely proven to be a lot stronger in the race compared to qualified conditions. And Bart Raven, surely he's got to be thinking about coming in shortly, because he's the only other driver beyond Paul Sims, who's in that 7th place at the moment, who's yet to pit. And there goes Raven, and I would imagine that Sims will be making his way in as well. Here comes Sims down Conrad and in towards the chase. And Southwood's car's now stationary in the pit lane. Where is Martin Blankenstein? There he is. We look to the blimp camera then. That's not the best of angles. It shows you Blankenstein, but it doesn't show you Southfield. Where is Southfield? He's leaving the pit lane. And Southfield here is going to retake the lead this race. And there is Francesco Petlin. Petlin's going to lose 2nd place. So Petlin comes back out. He drops to 3rd. And you'll see that Blankenstein, by going for the undercut, has gained. But Petlin has put in an extra 2 seconds of fuel compared to the two in front. Now, surely that's not something he hasn't been able to fuel save, but hold the telephone for a moment, ladies and gentlemen. Here's Bart Raven making his way on out, and as he does so, it's been a quick stop for Raven and the team. Where's Davenport? Here is Davenport, and Davenport has not gained on Bart Raven. In fact, he's lost out, and Bart Raven has been fuel saving his BMW M4. Davenport, meanwhile, has had to use extra fuel, and in turn has actually had to spend a lot longer in the pit. So Davenport has lost out to the tune of 3 seconds in the pit versus Raven, and Bart Raven right now is on course to take the AM victory here today. And when you consider the fact that Bart Raven all season long has been chasing wins, and he only picked up his first win of the season last time out in the class in race number 2 at Sonoma, well, to end it on back-to-back victories over 2 rounds definitely will feel quite special, but is it going to be enough? Well, that is of course the big question mark. And when you do consider that for a win it's 30 points and for second place it's 24 points, the answer may be no currently, but we will wait and see what exactly is to come up past that, because the drop scores are what a big factor here as to who is going to be taking home that championship crown, because we do have the 1 drop score to be considered. But thankfully, that's the statisticians to do. We don't have to worry about all the mathematics, but as soon as we know, we'll get you that update, ladies and gentlemen, as Cheverton and Twaddock are back together now. Very much so here. 4 tenths is the gap. I think Twaddock here looking to get himself right on the back of the man who he has been battling hard with all round long. And well, it's going to be a move up the inside. Twaddock going for it, and there's contact between the two of them again. Oh goodness me, and well, Sheraton's into the barrier, the car's around, he'll get it turned, but I think for Sheraton that is going to be the straw that breaks the camel's proverbial back there. And with a Craig Twaddock, he's lost his front bumper as well, and that is going to be a drive to the pit lane. He has picked up a proverbial meatball flag, or what is the orange circle with a black background flag, and that means he's got to come within 3 laps to have the car repaired. And for Craig Twaddock right now, some would say, was it worth it? Some would argue Cheverton perhaps turned in on him, knowing he was there. Well, it's open to interpretation, and we'll get a replay of that very shortly, ladies and gentlemen. It's definitely going to be one of the big question marks of the racing today, as here's the replay to explain. So this was the 2 drivers making the way on down, and well, Twaddock definitely went to the inside. Did he drift slightly wide of apex to cause the contact to Sheraton? Did Sheraton crowd him to the inside? I think Sheraton at that point had committed to the corner, and I think Twaddock had decided to go for a space that was there in his opinion. And well, unfortunately, it is Sheraton who's come off worse on track position initially, but Twaddock now has come off worse as a result of the damage he's picked up, and that is definitely the delta as he goes to that fast repair, and the car will very quickly be back out there. But meanwhile, we look to Jack Southfield here as he continues to lead this race by 1.1 seconds over Martin Blankensteiner. And Blankensteiner right now 1.3 seconds ahead of Francesco Petterlin. So Petterlin relegated to 3rd at this point. And well, I do believe that means that Tom Davidson would become your pro champion. We're not going to announce anything on air, ladies and gentlemen, until we do have the provisional final scores, and we will show you those when we do wrap up all the racing today. But as I try to make the way on through, right now this top 3 is definitely broken open, and it might be starting to go towards a bit of a calm direction with only 4 minutes remaining. Meanwhile, back to the battle of Craig Twaddock versus Valerio Petretti, and well, Twaddock in the end letting Petretti go, and I think Twaddock right now just trying to get the car together here and understand where exactly the car sits. And what I mean by that is he spent quite a bit of time in the pits and then dives back up the inside on Petretti. So Craig Twaddock just getting himself warmed up there, and then realising, actually, you know what, I'm going to go for the place. And the Italian job AM driver there giving Twaddock all the space and time of day to do that. So therefore, and I think Petretti not wanting to fight too hard. Speaking of the AM Championship, well, right now we believe it will be very close between Davenport and Raven, but with Davenport finishing 2nd behind Raven's win, it would still be enough for Mark Davenport to take the win this season ahead of Bart Raven. And as for who would be your 3rd place finisher, well, when you do consider coming into this round, it was the situation whereby we did have your 3rd placeman Valerio Petretti only at 9 points, with 11 points ahead of Craig Murphy, with Petretti down in 6th place at the moment to Craig Murphy's 3rd. Murphy may actually steal that 3rd place away, albeit it'll be very close on the drop scores because of the improvement margins that each driver has. That's why drop scores, they definitely open up opportunities for drivers, but it also gets so complicated. Still, let's put the complexity behind and talk about something simple and straightforward, which is Jack Southfield is your leader overall. There's only one problem. He's not leading by much anymore, because he was leading by 1.5 seconds. Martin Blankensteiner has said, actually, you know what, I'm going to bring that gap down. And on the last lap, Blankensteiner was faster by 3.5 tenths. Francesco Pettelin as well is matching the top two on pace. If Blankensteiner gets into a battle with Southfield, we could have the top three very close to each other right at the end here. And well, I can imagine we could see some theatrics. We've got this lap plus one more to go, if my mental mathematics is correct, in terms of a 2-minute 15 lap on average for the leaders. And the fact we have got just over 2 minutes remaining as Francesco Pettelin hits the wall. Coming out of turn number 9, my goodness, man, that was very close to the barrier. And well, he did make the contact, but it was flush, so he will get away with it this time. But Pettelin right now really fried everything at this. And you've got to admire the Italian's dedication, because he's absolutely week in, week out poured his heart into that BMW M4. And many would argue if only the BMW's tyre wear had just been a little bit more on the lenient side, he would have really been able to take the lead of the championship early on. But that's the way it goes. That's the way the balance of performance works, and you have to work with what you're given. But in the sprint races over a single lap, he's definitely been one of the fastest out there. When it has come to these feature races, it's just the long-term pace this BMW has slightly gone astray. And it's something that I think he's keen to work on. He's worked on as hard as he can this season long, but I think for season 4, because we're definitely going to think about season 4, we can probably do that, ladies and gentlemen, at some point in 2026, if not beyond. Well, I can imagine if Pettelin comes back, if he can master that, he will be a major championship contender once again. But that's not ruling him out right now, of course, as he makes his way through Murray's Bend, gone to the final lap, which Jack Southfield brings about as they do their final lap here, not just before the end of the season, but also before the end of 2025 and going into Christmas. And right now for the Sim Racing Collective esports driver, all he needs to do is keep it on the track and not make any mistakes. If he does so, he'll be landing a big Christmas present nice and early on, and it will be a race win this season. And for Jack Southfield, understandably, yet to take a win other than what was the sprint race win, I do believe, last time out in race number 2, but yet to take a feature win, and Southfield eager to put a feature win on the board. He's come close this season, but he's not quite made it happen. The closest he came, of course, was back in round number 4 at Circuit Zolder in the inclement conditions. Right now, the Sim Racing Collective esports driver, under sunny skies, blue skies at that, wants to get it done in classic fashion. So as we wind this race down, then, ladies and gentlemen, the only close driver out of the circuit at the moment who might be priming for battle will be Matt Cheverton versus Marlin Schwab. Cheverton with some damage to the car, of course, after that third instance of contact between himself and Craig Todd that relegated him down, but he has been able to stay ahead of Schwab, or just about. And Marlin Schwab, to be fair, the driver in the Porsche 1018 behind him, has done a very good job of trying to get the most out of this Porsche Cayman, but the Porsche just has not been there on the pace today. That definitely really has been one of the stories. It is the handling car, but the DLR FP1 driver at one point was chasing after Nick Clemens quite closely, but Clemens gradually broke away after getting ahead in the number 13, and that's the way they've gone over the distance. We've got Lenny Hansen and Mav Garner in the pits for repair work on their cars. I don't think we're going to be seeing them make the way back out before all is said and done. Meanwhile, Cheverton and Schwab close, but there may not be a move here until Forest Elbow, but then so they've got Conrod between them and the end of this one as we look from them back to your leaders. And here they are, your top 3 all together: Southfield, Blankensteiner and Pettelin. And once Francesco Pettelin chases this down, you can see right now the absolute ace lift design driver throwing everything at this, but it's been to no avail because they make the way into the final quarter for Jack Southfield. He's been pressured, he's been pushed, and having started in 3rd, he's going to come out the final quarter, take his 2nd win of the season and the final win of the season there for the Sim Racing Collective esports team. Jack Southfield wins in pro and overall ahead of Martin Blankensteiner for Cracked Racing. Francesco Pettelin takes 3rd for Absolute Motorsport Ace Lift. Is it enough or not to take the Pro Championship? We'll let you know as soon as we can. Kieran Sharp survives to 4th then for TSRC Esports ahead of Felix Moggy, who completes your top 5. Andrew Pike finishes in 6th place for TSRC, and then it will be Bart Raven who comes out the final quarter, and as he does so, he brings on home an absolutely brilliant and win. Is it enough for the championship title? We'll have to see, but the Cracked Racing drive does everything he needs to ahead of Nick Clemens and Mark Damport. Finishes runner-up in the AM class here, and he'll think you've got it for Manx Racing ahead of Matt Cheverton, who rounds off your top 10 for the Aztec Racing team. Marlin Schwab finished in 11th best of rest. Then it was Craig Murphy. Back-to-back podiums there for the Manx Racing team. A double podium here today in 2nd and 3rd. Clive Bourne just misses out there, 4th in AM, but 13th overall. And then we do have Paul Sims and Alan McCain completing your top 15, with Craig Twardock in the end fighting early on for the podium and at least the top 5. Where did it all go wrong? When in it was the red mist between himself and Aztec Race's Matt Sheraton that really scuppered the MSA Racing driver's dreams here today. Valerio Petretti takes 6th in AM, 17th overall, and then we've got a bit of time before we do get to our last couple of drives out there, enjoying a good little scrap here, to be fair. So let's keep attuned to this. It's Paolo Maniti and Martin Rendell. And right now, Rendell on a charge here to try and take this place as the Porsche driver stays close. However, this is all about now staying in the slipstream to make sure that gap doesn't get any bigger rather than stay even closer. And once they make the one down, he's gaining little by little. Now 1.5 tenths here as they make the way off of Conrad and in towards the chase. Onto the brakes they go. But Rendell too far back here. Maniti's going to defend as hard as possible, but he goes a bit deep there. Rendell's going to look around the outside. Can he get this done? Not quite. Now he's going to look to a dive to the inside here in towards what will be Murray's Bend. If he wants to try and sneak away with 7th place in the AM class, he's going to go for it, is Rendell. It's the final fight of the day, and well, Maniti's going to go a bit deep. Rendell's going to get traction out the final corner, and Martin Rendell in the end will steal the place away from Paolo Maniti. So it's 18th to Martin Rendell and 19th to Paolo Maniti, and that's all your lead lap finishers, ladies and gentlemen, as all the drivers gradually cool on down. And what I think Sarden here might be going for the proverbial jump, as we do see Nick Clemens there deciding to go all in. So let's just stay with this as he makes one down. Is he going to go for the jump, or is he going to bring the car safely on home? And in the end, the answer is he does go for the jump, albeit I think he's going to run out of traction here in the gravel, so the car's not actually going to make the jump. And unfortunately there, he finds out too soon that with the gravel revision to the physics of the car, that unfortunately he can't make the jump anymore, unlike the earlier years of GT4 racing here on the iRacing service. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, as Francesco Petlin calls the car on down into the pits, let's take a look to the scenic view, and with it to your race results, subject to any Stewards' inquiries. And after an absolutely brilliant 40 minutes of racing here at the Mount Panorama circuit in Australia for round 6 of 6 of Season 3 of the Sim Racing Collective GT4 series brought to you on iRacing, Jack Stourfield takes his first feature race win and only his second win of the season to make it back-to-back wins for the Sim Racing Collective Esports, overall in pro by 1.2 seconds over Cracked Racing's Martin Blankensteiner. For Blankensteiner, a great result, no doubt about it, and in fact, his best result of the season, his previous best being the 7th place in the season opener at Alton Park, delivering an incredible 2nd place finish today, the Dane, ahead of absolute multiple ace lifts, Francesco Petlin, who with a 3rd place, he'll be gutted to not have taken the win, or at least the 2nd, and now he's definitely at the mercy of the mathematicians to whether he's become your pro champion or not. Behind the Italian, it was Kieran Sharp for the TSRC Esports team in the McLaren that looked a bit lonely towards the end, but the first off the podium had a Felix Smoggy by the best part of 9 seconds. Felix Smoggy for Cracked Racing in the end, enjoying a strong race. Round off the top 5 in the 284 ahead of Andrew Pike, who finished 6th for TSRC Esports, and then Bart Raven securing definitely one of his finest drives of the season, if not his best of the season, and well, with it, only his 2nd win of the season. His first feature race win in the AM class there, 7th overall. Behind the Dutchman, the Irish Esports driver Nick Clemens split the top 2 of the AMs, and in the end, Mark Davenport taking 9th place there, 2nd in the AM class. The Manx Racing driver will think that's enough to take the AM crown. Matt Sheraton took 10th in the end for Aztec Racing, ruined what could have been today, and best rest 11th place behind him was Marlon Schwab, who pushed hard towards the end, but the DLR FP1 drive didn't have the pace on the straights to match the Mustang. Craig Murphy took the 3rd place spot in AM at 12th overall. Well done to the Manx Racing driver for making it another podium this season, and what in the end has now become his 3rd podium, and his first time visiting 3rd place on the podium. He's finished 2nd in all other podium visits, and indeed, Craig Murphy had one of the most consistent AM championships this season, not finishing outside the top 5 in a single round. Well done to him. So the Manx Racing drive was followed up by Clive Bourne for Big Pig Racing by VRS. Another solid result for him. 4th place down, 13th overall. Now it's Paul Sims, the private, and Alan McCain for Irish Esports who completed your top 15. Craig Twardock took 16th place in for MSA Racing, gutted after the 3 moments of batting with Matt Sheraton. That didn't work out at all. And then Valerio Petretti and Martin Rendell followed up behind, with Petretti in the end taking home 17th and Martin Rendell taking home 18th place, just squeezing his way ahead in that final lap battle with Paolo Maniti. Then it was 20th place to lap down Valerio Tedeschi, and then 5 laps down with retirement, Bottle Job Racing's Lenny Hansen, and there was also an early retirement sadly for Mav Garner, who rounded off your starting field of 22. So 22 starters, 20 finishers, ladies and gentlemen, of which 19 on the lead lap, and that brings all of our racing to a close here today. not just in Australia, but for the season as a whole. And what a season it has been. But of course, it doesn't bring this broadcast to a close, because coming up in approximately 5 minutes' time, we're going to be getting our final post-round interviews of the season. So don't go anywhere, you won't want to miss them. And whilst you're waiting for them, do let us know what has been your favourite moment of the racing today, because there's been plenty of great moments, but we'd love to hear from you. And we'll be back in the meantime as soon as we can, ladies and gentlemen. Without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, it is time to kick off our post-round interviews for the last time this season. And we're going to start off by talking to Andrew Pike from the Sim Racing Collective Esports as he joins me now in the interview room. Good evening to you, Andrew. And, well, what a round of racing for yourself. I mean, starting in 9th, finishing 6th in the end overall. It was an uphill battle every step of the way. But, I mean, we've seen plenty of those from you this season. This one was no exception.
No, it was nice to move forward. I didn't qualify very well, but then I didn't get many laps in practice, so I kind of knew what I was up against there. And I was going to have to rely on the endurance driver in me again, looking after the tyre and saving the fuel. Looking at the pit times, I was, aside from Sharpie, the quickest pit stop of the lot, which was based on not taking much fuel. And then I had to fuel save like crazy in the second half as well. But it's pleasing to... When you know you haven't got the pace, it's pleasing to pull something like that out the bag for sure.
Oh, 100%. Absolutely pulled it off in the end. But dialing it all the way back to the start, of course, not eligible for the Championship crown tonight, given the way the points have gone this season. But it's a season finale at Bathurst. Had you set yourself any targets coming into this round?
Yes and no. I know the car's fast, so I wanted to make the most of that. And everybody enters these things to be competitive, don't they? So you want to be well within the top 10 if you can amongst the drivers that we've got here. But other than that, the only other target I had was to make sure I didn't put anybody in the fence, especially when it can have big implications for people that are in for both of the championships. And I don't necessarily know who can do what mathematically at any point. So just took the care necessary to make sure that if a championship leader was bounced off a fence, then it wasn't me that did it. Aside from that, I just aimed to just enjoy it, see what I could get from it.
Oh, 100%. And the enjoyment factor seems to be out there, no doubt about it. Although we have been hearing coming into this round, when we caught up with Kieran Sharp, your teammate, before the racing got underway, there's been some changes to these GT4 cars in terms of the balance of performance, perhaps. Have you noticed anything with your BMW in this round?
I just noticed that Sharpie's fairly slow now. He's blaming it on the McLaren, but what we have seen, jokes aside, is that it seems like the mid and rear engine things have been pegged back a little bit, and the front engine cars seem to be stronger. So, although the BMW is definitely fast on the straights, so was the Mustang, so was the Merc. I had a good battle with Davenport early in the race, and he was able to draw alongside me and you know, go for a move, whereas when Nick was behind me, he wasn't able to do that. So, with jokes aside, the rear engine stuff has suffered this season. I think the boys that picked those were probably on regret street for most of the season. They weren't absolutely bopped into oblivion where they weren't competitive, but it was certainly much more of a struggle for them to get a result, I would say. But we didn't know that going into the season. I certainly didn't anyway. But it's unusual for it to work out in my favour. Usually this sort of thing works out against me and I end up miles off it. So I can't be too sad about how that's worked out.
Oh, true. Well, whether a car's been bopped or it's the driver who's bopping the car, either way, we got to see some absolutely classic driving through the field. Although I have to ask, how do you weigh it up, particularly at a circuit like Bathurst, in terms of needing to be aggressive and making the places versus focusing more on the strategy and saving the fuel? Because like you say, you had one of the shortest pit stops of today, but how do you balance out knowing you need to pass the guy in front of you to gain the time versus knowing actually it's not worth overtaking that guy, I should save behind him?
I think it's about knowing what your pace is. So I knew, for instance, when Tordok went for the move on me, well, I know he's faster than me, but I could probably latch onto the back of him, so I didn't fight that. Whereas when I caught But I knew that if I was lifting behind Bart, I was possibly going to be dropping a bit of time. Without sounding disrespectful, Bart was fast enough, but I was probably going to be dropping time using him to save a bit of fuel. So you look at your own pace, you look at the pace of the cars ahead of you and make a decision quickly based on that. And I could see that even in clean air, if I sent it, I wasn't going to be quick enough to be gaining on the cars ahead. So you have to sort of manage it then based on that. And I knew that my best chance was going to be to save as much fuel as I could before the stop, and also still under-fueled in the stop and have to continue fuel saving after the stop to make it. I crossed the line with 0.15 of a litre and it just spluttered as I hit the finish line. So it, in that respect, I couldn't really have managed it any better. I probably could have been a bit faster, but as you mentioned, it's a fine line between pushing a bit too hard and then not making your target. I think if I'd have been a bit closer to the pace, it would have been a harder decision to make. Some boys were doing high 14s, low 15s. If I'd have been within half a second of that, I might have opted to push on. But famously, I'm never quite on the pace of those boys. I just tend to be okay at hitting fuel targets and looking after tyres. So you just as well play to your strengths, haven't you? That's what I went for.
Well, you definitely played to your strengths today and picked up what was one of your strongest points of the season, the feature races, with that sixth, albeit perhaps not comparing to some of your previous results, such as the third place at Alton Park. But on wider reflection, how would you rate your season out of 10?
It was all right, maybe a 7. I think I got caught out a couple of times in accidents that were not really anything to do with me. I don't feel like I could have done anything to avoid most of them, but at the same time, that's racing, isn't it? You get away with some, you don't get away with others. So I think overall it was okay. I was in a strong car, and I think I'll be 6th, maybe 7th in the standings. So when you look at the ability of the field, I can be relatively pleased with that overall. So yeah, maybe a 7 out of 10. I think there's always room for improvement.
All very true, but still a great retrospective on your season. And looking ahead now to next year, because of course this will be the final major series that we run here at the Sim Racing Collective for 2025. Plenty more to come into 2026, but is there anything you particularly want to focus on for next year when it comes to sim racing?
I mean, I've been working fairly hard on paying attention to where I drop time in certain cars and really trying to close the gap between those that are markedly quicker than me, and I feel like that's happening. So for me, it's just to keep on understanding where the time loss is, and I mean that's the enjoyment I get from this. Everybody's doing this for different reasons. Some people just casually like to game. Some people are in it for competition, and for me, it's the competition and knowing that I've done as well as I possibly could with where I am. So trying to keep moving forward in that regard. I think with my iRating, I've probably hit a ceiling for now, at least, where I'm not going to get much further. But I'm not worried about that. It would just be nice to keep on cutting the lap times down and getting closer. You're moving into the next gen touring cars, for instance, and trying to be closer to the quickest boys in there. That's what I'll be spending my time working out and hopefully improving on.
All fair play. Well, there's always improvements to come, and looking forward to seeing what you're able to chase down and achieve next year. And it's at this point, normally, I'd say, before I let you go, would you like to give a shout out to anybody? But because Christmas is around the corner, what's your plans for Christmas?
I'll eat way too much cheese. I will sleep an awful lot, and I will probably grumble about the mess everywhere. To be honest, mate, that's around about what happens for me. I've got to work a fair bit of it as well, but not all of it, and I will probably gain half a stone.
Well, we'll refer to that as success ballast over Christmas in preparation for the new year. Andrew,
Yes.
we'll leave it there, but congratulations today on a brilliant drive to 6th. More strategy than outright attack, but to be fair, that's what we know you're best for, and we look forward to plenty more in 2026. Until then, my friend, have a great rest of your evening, and we'll see you next year.
Thank you very much, mate. All the best. See you soon.
So hearing there, ladies and gentlemen, from Andrew Pike for the Sim Racing Collective Esports, talking about the balancing factor today of needing to make sure that he prided as much on strategy as he did on attack on the circuit, and really breaking it down in terms of knowing who to pass and who not to based on relative pace and the relative gain to the car in front. And it's a really good balancing act. It's something that Andrew's very well known for. But talking about there as well, the fact that as he goes into next year, his target really being to try and tighten up the pace, tighten up the mistakes, and improve himself across multiple disciplines, including GT4s and also TCR. So therefore, there's always a bit of improvement around the corner. And honest with himself, he'd give himself a 7 out of 10. I would say a 7 out of 10 is a fair assessment. I think in the first half of the season, he definitely looked strong. But as we went through the mid-portion, things started to wane a little bit. But for Andrew Pike, he's never given up, and that's why he's always been chasing top 5s, if not podiums this season. And hopefully in next season, the GT4 series, we'll see him right back on course again, fighting for the title. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, we've got even more interviews to come, and we'll be back in approximately what will be 20 seconds or less for our next interview. And well, we're going to the AM class, but who's it going to be? So into the AM class we go, and as we do, well, ladies and gentlemen, we're very happy to tell you that joining me now in the interview room is your provisional AM champion for Season 3. It's none other than Mark Davenport. Mark, provisionally, congratulations on bringing on home an absolutely hard-fought trophy and championship with it. How does it make you feel, sir, to hear the words you are provisional AM champion?
Oh, it's a great feeling and totally unexpected. It's our first iRacing championship that we've done, both Craig and I. So, yeah, to get the actual win provisionally, it's a great feeling.
Oh, goodness me. Well, a great feeling, but today, how did you come into this round? Had you done the maths beforehand to perhaps recognise you didn't need to win today to beat Bart in the championship, you just need to finish behind him?
I hadn't done the calculations, but with most racing, I think second to first there's only a smallish gap. So I kind of gathered that if I finished quite close to him, yeah, it would be a tight finish. He had great pace today and a well-deserved win. I couldn't quite keep with him over the mountain part. And then just as the race went on, the front tyres just started to understeer, and you could just see there was more room for error creeping in. So yeah, no, congratulations to him and a really well-deserved win today.
Or indeed, a brilliant drive from Bart. And I have to ask then, coming into this round in terms of the qualifying and then subsequently the race, it was very close between the two of you in qualifying. There wasn't much in it. However, we did see the BMW seem to have a bit of a pace advantage over one lap versus the Mercedes. Was that something that stood out to yourself? Or was it more of a Bathurst is one of those circuits that actually you may have felt you weren't going to be on the pace by default?
Yeah, the BMW did have a straight line advantage. That those guys, yeah, was certainly quick down the straight. I think it's just you're thinking how hard should you push when you're qualifying, etc. So I think I got a reasonable lap in on lap 2. And I was about 2/10 up on the delta, just coming into down the other side of the mountain. I made a small mistake, which then obviously once you make a small mistake, you lose all momentum, and that's the lap gone. So yeah, Bart had good pace and he was consistent with it right the way through.
Well, definitely very close between the two of you. And like you say, small mistakes making the difference. Now, coming into the race, in the early stages, it really looked as though it was a game of follow the leader. Bart was leading, you were following closely. Then a number of pros got involved, and particularly, if we have to use a metaphor, a few decided to put on some boxing gloves, and they almost pulled you and Bart into a proverbial punch-up in the pub. We're talking about Matt Cheverton and Craig Tardock, of course, and the elbows coming out there. Did you immediately go, you know what, I don't want any part of this? Because we saw you make it very clear you were on the outside line at every corner. You didn't want to get in the way of anybody.
Yeah, after those guys had come together, they were looking quite aggressive on the corners and things, and just climbing up the mountain to the tight left. Yeah, Craig, I could see him in the mirror just lining up the inside as if he was going to make a dive. So I just left enough space for him to come up. Those guys there, they were going well. It was just a shame they came together. I think they must have been sitting maybe 6th or 7th when they'd come together. So they certainly had the pace. So I just thought I'd let them go and just sit in, see if I could keep with them for the rest of the race.
Oh, indeed. A very smart move there, and in the end it played into your advantage, albeit Bart gradually pulled away, and we do see him there in the YouTube chat, and he's very grateful for your kind words. Did you think that perhaps you might be able to close the gap on the strategy, or was there a point where you said, you know what, unless he makes a mistake now, there's no way back?
Yeah, after that, a little coming together between Matt and one of the other drivers there, it just broke the gap a little bit really from me to Bart. And yeah, I just didn't want to push too hard. I could feel the tyres that were starting to understeer through the tight stuff, and yeah, I just want to have an unexpected collision with the barrier and things. So I just backed it off a little bit really, and just try and maintain a sort of a consistent race pace from there on in.
Well, a highly consistent run all the way to the finish, and no doubt about it. And in crossing that finish line and becoming our AM champion for Season 3, I mean, what has it settled in yet, the fact you've been able to achieve it? Because it's been such a close season between yourself and so many drivers.
Yeah, earlier on I'd made so many mistakes. The pace was somewhere near, but it just wasn't consistent at all in the race. And I think since Zolder, when I had a great finish and a great race again with Bart, that there just sort of propelled me forward with the points really, and just put me into contention coming into the last round. But yeah, it's been a great championship, and yeah, a big thank you to everyone at TSRC, Kieran and yourself, Paul. It's been a fantastic and enjoyable championship.
Oh, well, it's been an absolutely fantastic season from yourself. Well done on taking the provisional AM crown. And I do have to ask, just before I let you go, firstly, one question of what's next for yourself then? Have you set your sights for 2026?
I am interested to see what TSRC have got to come up. It's been a really enjoyable championship to be involved in, really well organised, and yeah, let's just see what the new year brings. We'll enjoy Christmas first and do a few odd events here and there, but yeah, we'll see what new year brings for a new championship.
And now, lastly, what I'd normally do is say at this point, do you want to give anybody a shout out? But instead, because Christmas is around the corner, what's on the table for Christmas this year? Is it turkey, tinsel, or is it beef gammon? Let us know.
Well, maybe a little bit of both. Eh? You can't beat any of them. So yeah, maybe a little bit of both. But yeah, I hope everyone has a great Christmas, and yeah, it's been a very enjoyable sort of time within TSRC.
Likewise, Mark, we wish you a Merry Christmas, an early present here on your AM Championship crown. Well done once again on not just the title, but second place state and a brilliant drive. We look forward to plenty more in seeing you on the grid next year in TSRC. But until then, my friend, enjoy it, rejoice in it. You are our provisional AM champion for the GT4 Season 3.
Thanks very much, Paul. Happy Christmas.
Oh, goodness me, ladies and gentlemen. What a happy man is Mark Davenport for Manx Racing. You can hear it in his voice, the fact that it is gradually settling into him little by little, how he's been able to pull this off. And an honest reflection in the fact, first half of the season, when you look at his results, the results were not that stellar. But that could be the whole summary of the AM Championship for so many drivers in the first half of the season. Everybody was stumbling. Then in round number 4, the absolutely legendary battle between Mark Davenport and Bart Raven that went down to 6 thousandths at Circuit Zolder really defined the two drivers who are putting their stakes in the ground for the championship fight, and that's where it played out from. So really, it's only taken the last 3 rounds to decide it, but what a trio of rounds they have been. And for Mark, that consistency has shone through, and that's not to undermine Bart Raven's performances either. But in the end, when it really mattered today, Mark had the advantage on points. He knew what he needed to do. He stayed out of trouble and got the job done. And whether he's back on the grid next season in the GT4s, whatever else we've got in store, more on that at the end of today's broadcast, I reckon the sky is the limit for the Manx Racing driver. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, we've got another interview to come. Don't go anywhere. There's more on the way. And so, ladies and gentlemen, we come back to the Pro class, and we now have join us in the interview room none other than Kieran Sharp. Kieran, good evening to you once again. Of course, we talked before the racing today, and after what we discussed regarding the McLaren before the racing, 5th place in qualifying, 4th overall in the end. Do you feel a little bit better now?
Yeah, could have gone worse, and I think maybe if I got my elbows that bit on the start, could have maybe got a podium as well, but it's kind of story of the season, I think. I think I need to be a bit more aggressive early on to get something out of this car, and I weren't quite doing it.
Well, to be fair, aggression or not, you're definitely extracting a lot of pace from the car. And in qualifying, was there a point in qualifying where you thought to yourself, given the 3 laps available, actually, you know what, this isn't as bad as what it seems? Because you definitely were flying towards the end.
Yeah, my 3rd lap was, I was actually over 2 tenths up. I think I would have been either just behind Jack or ahead of him. So until I made a mistake out onto the back straight and second to last corner, and I lost it all, unfortunately. But yeah, it's definitely had some pace. I think it was just a few tenths off, I think, Paul, if I hooked it up.
Well, just a few tenths off a pole if you got it together, but let's come on to the race. Now, the race start, we definitely saw plenty of aggression on the front 3 rows. A top 3 that decided to go 3 wide for the opening couple corners, and you were right behind watching it all play out. Something tells me that you didn't want to push your luck at the start.
Yeah, I saw, I think it was Martin, he got quite loose after a contact with Francesco, and I actually lifted thinking one was going to come back across in anticipation, especially after doing some Week 13 Bathurst races recently. I kind of knew how that went, so I thought, oh, yeah, I'll play it safe. But out of an absolute miracle, they all held it together, and yeah, I got runs on me going into T2. Otherwise, I think I might have been able to put a bit more of a fight up later on, otherwise maybe.
Well, may not have put on the fight early on, but after that, of course, plenty of fighting did gradually make its way to you, and you found yourself for the majority of the race in the company of Felix Smoggy's Ford Mustang. How did you manage to keep him behind for so long?
I think I was quick enough over the mountain, and I was very fortunate that he made a mistake coming out of T1 on one lap, and I managed to clear him going into T2 and defend the inside. Otherwise, I think it would have been very difficult to pass him, as that Mustang was very quick on the straight, I think even quicker than Beamer tonight.
Well, the Mustang may have been the speed dim on the straights, but like you say, you had the speed over the mountains. And just from a driver's perspective, I mean, we've seen many a driver tonight have a brief brush with one of the walls over the mountain, left some paint. From the looks of things, your car's still got all the paint intact on it. I mean, how close can you get to those walls without thinking to yourself, I'm actually going to hit one of them?
I think I had a couple 0x's over the fast uphill section. But yeah, you've got to just keep it really tidy. There's a lot of dirt on the edges of the track now on this new updated Bathurst that was just dropped last week, and I think you noticed into T2 when people try to hang around the outside, there was no grip whatsoever there, more so than before. And yeah, if you went wired, it's just a recipe for like throwing lap time away.
Well, might have been a few brushes, but in the end, you're able to survive them all. And on strategy, we talked to your teammate Andrew Pike earlier. The two of you, the quickest on the pit stops by far. And practically, now that I look at the statistics here, you two having practically identical pit stop times of 8.09 seconds each. I mean, how much fuel saving went into this race then?
I think before I passed Craig and Felix, I was saving a little bit. And then when I managed to get past, I managed to save quite a bit going down the mountain because it's all downhill. Kind of roll the car through. But it wasn't that much. I was quite aggressive going into the pits, and I was kind of very fine on the pit speed for the pit lane as well. So it was very fine margins, and I had to be if I wanted to stay ahead with the speed of the BMWs and Fords.
Well, to be fair, you may have cut it to fine margins, but in the end, a fourth place finish has meant that you finished as our third place runner-up in the Pro Championship this season. Looking back on your season, how would you rate yourself out of 10?
Completely bang average. Could have done better. Could have done worse. Maybe different car choice might have put me in a better situation at some tracks. But yeah, I think Tom was definitely on it all season, and fortunately he couldn't do tonight as well. And same as Francesco, he was putting up a good fight all season along with all of us at the front as well.
Well, it was an absolutely brilliant season back and forth between the three of you, no doubt about it. You're definitely in it all the way through. Also, we do have to give a small shout out to Alessandro Dalladonna, who unfortunately couldn't make tonight, but he was also in the fight. You just crept ahead of him. But what's next for yourself then? Of course, I know there's plenty more coming at TSRC. Can you give us a little bit of an indication of perhaps what's to come?
Yeah, we put a vote out recently. People asking what kind of cars they want to drive, and it's quite clear the Cup cars on the table for next year, and obviously we've discussed a driver swap series on the weekends, which is very promising, and I think a lot of people enjoy it.
Oh, fantastic. Well, we've got that to look forward to, and we'll talk a little bit more about that later in terms of what's to come, ladies and gentlemen, plus also a few one-off events, I do believe. But coming back to yourself, Kieran, just before we do let you go, I do have to ask, normally we do shout-outs at this point, because Christmas is around the corner. If you could put one thing in your sim racing stocking this Christmas, what would it be?
Oh, good question. I don't know, some free 1Xs, maybe.
Oh, dear me. Well, Kieran, we'll leave it there. Congratulations today on your fourth place finish. A brilliant effort, and with it, our third place run-up in the Pro Championship. A well-earned result, and we look forward to plenty more for yourself going into 2026. Until then, my friend, have a great rest of your evening.
All right, thanks. See you later.
So here and there, ladies and gentlemen, from Kieran Sharp, who didn't quite know what he wanted in his Christmas stocking, but to be fair, I don't think we all do, but it's always good to put our drivers on the spot with a little bit of an out-of-the-ordinary question. But coming back to what mattered, the racing today. And talking a lot about there the fact that really settled down into the McLaren as the qualifying session went on, but not happy about the fact in the end he did scupper a couple attempts right at the end on his final lap, which would have been enough to put him even further up the starting order, perhaps put him on the second row, and with it, give him even more of a chance to chase down the podium. But after the top three had settled and all the fighting had calmed down, mentioning about the fact that in the end it really was as much strategy as conservatism that enabled him to stay in fourth place and hold off the intentions of the likes of Felix and we have seen that constantly in the background whilst talking to Kieran. Happy with his season to an extent, but feeling as though he needs to be more aggressive, and you can definitely pinpoint several moments, today included, with a little bit more of aggression, a bit more risk-taking. Could he have been closer to the crown and perhaps made it a 1-2 alongside his teammate and champion for this season provisionally of Tom Davidson? Well, there's always big what-if questions, but also we do have a few things that are more certain, and that is we'll expect to see him back on the grid in the near future, particularly with the upcoming driver swap series on Saturdays, which we'll tell you more about at the end of today's broadcast, ladies and gentlemen. But with that, we've got one more interview lined up, ladies and gentlemen. We're staying in the Pro class, but who is it going to be? We'll be back very shortly to find out. And so, ladies and gentlemen, we come to our final interview of the evening. He's been very patient. It is none other than Francesco Petalin who joins me now in the interview room. Francesco, firstly, a huge congratulations to yourself. It's not quite the championship crown, but you are our provisional pro runner-up. You came very close, but how does that make you feel to be the runner-up this season?
Hi, Bol. Thank you, and it feels not so good actually, because I've lost for not many points. I don't know how many, probably 5 or 10, and I had to win this race to win the championship, as simple as that. And it's been my best season, my best championship in TSRC. I think it's the third or fourth one that I've done here, and it's been the best because I haven't taken a single penalty, and I've always been up there. But I knew already before starting it that I was pretty good in GT4s.
Well, you definitely put on an absolutely brilliant show today, and I do feel for you. I can understand where you're coming from in feeling a little bit disappointed you weren't able to seal the crown. But let's talk more about the positives from today, perhaps. Firstly, qualifying, a very close qualifying session, second on the grid in the end. At one point, you were pole sitter. I mean, you looked very quick in that BMW.
Yeah, I was pretty confident here at Bathurst because I really like this circuit. And it's very fun to race on. Unfortunately, in qualifying, I've lost the car in the second lap, and I've lost a lot of time. And I knew I could have done a sub 15 that would have brought me on pole position. But it's not as simple as it seems to push the car on the limit at Bathurst, and with 50 degrees Celsius of track temperature, also the tires were cooked after the first laps, and I think everybody did his fastest time in the first lap. I don't know, I'm not sure about it, but probably it is. And we were all really close, so a small difference in temperatures and pressures in the tires could do a big difference.
Oh, 100%. Now, going from qualifying to the race, I mean, for somebody who had it all on the line tonight, Francesco, you absolutely scared us at the start. 3 wide for the opening couple of corners to try and take the lead. I mean, how was that for you? It was absolutely incredible on the broadcast.
Yeah, I was really scared about it because at the start I thought I only had Blankensteiner side by side. Then when I looked at the relatives, I saw that there was another car, Sutfield, in front of us, and but I couldn't see him because I have a single monitor and I can't turn the view. So when I looked at the relatives, I saw that they were all coming towards me and Blankensteiner, and then I had to brake as late as I could for turn 2 because I would have lost so much time that it would have been impossible to even think about winning the race. But it was really, really fun, and maybe one of the best and most fun race start we've had in a while.
Oh, 100%. And after that, things settled down a little bit, but the three of you ran together for so long. I mean, at what point were you started to think about strategy? Because we saw you get close to Jack at some points, and then Martin would get a bit close to you. The three of you were going back and forth like a yo-yo.
Yeah, we were really, really close. I didn't think Blankensteiner would have been so fast the entire race, but the Mustang is a bullet in the straight. And yeah, I was thinking about the strategy since the race started almost. From lap 2 I was saving fuel, but I have no idea how I've lost almost 2 seconds to Blankensteiner in the pits and 1.5 to Jack Southfield. And I still have to understand what I've done wrong because I finished the race with 1 liter. So you can't lose for 1 liter 1 second and a half. And I've lost the race there. I thought I had done a really good job by saving, but when we exited the pits, I I I realized I didn't made a really good job, and so that was race ended for me because here, even if you are half a second per lap faster, it's really difficult to overtake.
Well, it may not have worked out in strategy, but I can tell you one thing, Francesco. You've won the hearts of many, myself included, this season. And the fact you took third today to secure your runner-up spot, you've been a star all the way through. But when you look back over the season, what's going to be the one moment that is your highlight?
I don't know. There are many moments. The race start here was one of them, absolutely. And then at the Sonoma, the overtake on Davidson, the dive bomb was really good. And then the well, at Holton Park, I had a bad how you call it? A bad memories, a bad memory about my strategy there because I've lost the race. And yeah, there are many moments, not just one. But I mean, I've lost the championship for fuel saving in race 1 and in the last race. So fuel saving is the word for this championship.
Well, still, you used all the fuel. You didn't necessarily save it all, but we've loved your spirit every step of the way. And I guess the question now is, what's next for yourself? What are your plans for 2026 when it comes to sim racing?
For 2026 in sim racing, I'm going to compete in the entire championship, in the official iRacing championship of the Global Endurance Challenge with Absolute Motorsport, with the Corvette GT3s, and then probably the ACI Esport, so the Italian National Championship of GT4s maybe, in the last part of the year. And in real life, I hope to do a pretty big step and race in pretty important karting races, since I do both sim racing and karting.
Oh, fantastic. Well, I'm sure I'll be the first of many to wish you the best of luck, not just with your sim racing endeavours next year, but also your real life motorsport endeavours. It's so great to hear you pushing for real life glory as well. Francesco, just before we do let you go, because we've asked everybody else a Christmas question, so we're going to ask you one today. A straightforward one. What are your plans for Christmas?
My plans for Christmas. My birthday is in 5 days, and I'm going to be 18 in 5 days. So I think it's more about my birthday than Christmas. But probably in Christmas I'm going to do the usual big lunch with all the relatives and my parents and my granddads.
Oh, fantastic. Well, let me be the first to say in advance, happy 18th birthday for 5 days' time. And I do wish you and all your family a Merry Christmas. Francesco, we'll leave it there. Congratulations on being our runner-up for this season in the Pro class. Not quite the championship, but you came very close as the season went on, and we look forward to plenty more in 2026. But until then, my friend, have a great rest of your evening and Merry Christmas.
Thank you, Paul. Merry Christmas to you too.
So here in there, ladies and gentlemen, friend Francesco Petalin, who understandably a little bit disappointed, and in a way I think not frustrated necessarily, but just bemused or bamboozled perhaps could be the word, through the fact that today had a lot of pace once again, pushed quite hard in qualifying and found that the track temperature of 50 degrees centigrade, because it is peak summertime in Australia at the moment, and that's modelled on the simulator, really meant that qualifying, you can only get one good lap, and in the race, he was right in the thick of it to win it, but the strategy just didn't add up, and in the end, had to spend the best part of an extra second in the pit, spend an extra litre of fuel in versus both Jack Southwood and Martin Blankensteiner, even with the fuel saving. It's the one thing that definitely, and he's admitted it, when he looks back on the season, strategy is what has defeated him when it's come to chasing the championship. He's come so close, the closest he's been all the times he's raced in this series. And here today, it's just gone away. But he'll work on that. He's got to go back to the drawing board. But he's got plenty of positives to talk about. And talking about the overlap battling here today, that 3 wide in the entertainment. Also, his move on Tom Davidson at Sonoma last week. And I think once he settles down, Francesco Petalin will definitely feel as though there are a lot of positives to take from this season. Plus, also areas for improvement. There's never a perfect season, no matter how high you finish. But he's definitely been one of the stars. And we look forward to plenty more in 2026. Particularly whether it's on the virtual circuit, alternatively on the real life circuit. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, that concludes our interviews for today. And a huge thank you to all 4 of our interviews. We've had a bumper interview edition this evening, because it is our season finale. Firstly, we did hear from Andrew Pyatt for the Sim Racing Collective Esports, our pro class driver there, one of 2 major strategists today. Before we then defected our way to the AM class to speak to our provisional drivers champion from Manx Racing of Mark Davenport. Then we made our way back to the pro class, which is where we stayed. We spoke to the 3rd place run-up driver of Kieran Sharp for the Sim Racing Collective Esports, and you've just heard from Absolute Motorsport Acelif's pro class runner-up, Francesco Petalin. Congratulations to all 4 of their performances, not just tonight, but for the entirety of the season. And thank you to them all for sparing the time to join us for a final interview of the season. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, it's sad to say it is now time for us to wrap up. Thank you very much for watching, and if you have enjoyed today's show, and perhaps you're sat there right now wanting to know more about the Sim Racing Collective, in terms of who we are and what we're all about when it comes to Sim Racing Series, well, for all that and more, we definitely recommend you firstly check out our website, and that is of course found at www.tsrc.club, and here it is on screen, our website, where you can go straight to the beating heart of the community by joining our official Discord in the centre of the screen. You've got all of our socials on the left, from SimGrid all the way through to the Discord. At the bottom, you've got our partners and affiliates, and at the very top, you've got the access to our news and rules pages if you want to find out more about what it means to be on the grid here at the Sim Racing Collective. But if you don't want to go to our website, perhaps you're more of a social media person, then the number one place to follow us is on Twitter at twitter.com/TSRC_official. We can stay up to date all the latest news and announcements and all things TSRC. We'd like to take a moment as well to say a big thank you to our partners and affiliates, who do include Motorsport UK's esports division, SimGrid, Coach David Academy, and Abruzzi Simulation of Motorsports. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, what's next, I hear you ask? Well, that is all we've got time for racing-wise here in 2025. But we will be back. Fret not. We've got more to come in 2026. And as Kieran Sharp, one of the senior admins at the Sim Racing Collective, alluded to earlier in his interview, we have got plenty of series to come, including an all-new driver swap base championship that is going to run on Saturdays, UK time in the afternoon in January. From mid-January approximately, the dates are being finalised, but it is going to be featuring most likely the all-new Porsche 992.2 Cup car. So if you've ever wanted to race in the Premier GT4 Cup racing machine from the German manufacturer, manufacturer, you'll definitely be interested to get on the grid, and make sure you follow us at the Sim Racing Collective either via our website or alternatively on Twitter to find out more, and stay attuned to when you can sign up for that, because that is going to be our first steps into Driver Swap Series and you won't want to miss it. We'll also have plenty more one-off events to go alongside it as the year goes on, and that will just be the start of 2026, ladies and gentlemen, and indeed we will be back in full force after a highly successful 2025. But of course, all of our admins have done a fantastic job, and a huge thank you to them, a huge thank you to our stewarding team, a major thank you of course to all of our drivers who have taken part week in and week out. But lastly, we need to say a big thank you to you guys and girls who have tuned in, week out as well, and absolutely enjoyed the race alongside us, and with it giving us plenty to talk about in the YouTube chat. If it weren't for you guys and girls, the show would not go on, and thank you very much for encouraging us to keep the show going on. But with that, sadly, the show for now must be put on pause. That is the conclusion of our GT4 Series Season 3. And well done to all our drivers, well done to our provisional champions in the Pro class of Tom Davidson and in the AM class of Mark Davenport. And until next time, ladies and gentlemen, we have been the Sim Racing Collective. I've been your host and commentator, Paul Walsh, also known as TX141 or Brit in the Spit, depending on what media you follow me on, and I'm very pleased to say that I do hope to be continuing the stories of the Sim Racing Collective alongside the team going into 2026. You expect me back in the commentary booth, but until next time, have a Merry Christmas, a Happy New Year. Remember to stay safe, stay well, stay smiling, and lastly, and most importantly, unlike our drivers, always remember to stay on track. Good night.